Hello, this is Jill Slinker, the Director of the Department of Student Programs for the Indiana Association of School Principals. Thank you for volunteering to be the central scorekeeper at the Area Quiz Bowl competition. This webinar will give you the information that you need to complete the forms correctly. So, I don't know how much experience you have with Quiz Bowl, but I wanted to give you the basics before we started so that you would have an idea of what you're getting yourself into. So starting with this, we have 22 toss-up questions per round of Quiz Bowl. A team may substitute all but the captain after question 11. Each toss-up question is worth either 15 or 10 points, depending upon when it is answered. If the question is answered before the power mark, which is indicated by an asterisk in the question packet, then the team will be awarded 15 points. The room scorekeeper is supposed to indicate with a star or an asterisk out in the margin when they have a 15-point question, in addition to giving them the 15 points, just to make it easier to find these things. The reader will indicate to the scorekeeper if the team received the power points by saying power after the team is answered. If the question is answered correctly after the power mark, then the team will earn 10 points. If a team interrupts a reader before the question is finished and gets the answer wrong, they will receive a -5 points. Now, the team who answers correctly will get the opportunity to answer 3 bonus questions worth 10 points each. The other team does not have a chance at these questions. The toss-up questions must be answered by the individual who buzzed in without consultation with anyone. The bonus questions should be answered by the captain, but with full consultation and cooperation of his or her teammates. One of the things that I highly suggest that you do is to view the webinar for the room scorekeepers. It's about 10 minutes long. It's also linked on our Quiz Bowl webpage, right next to the link that you use to access this one, actually. By doing this, you will know what they are expected to do. And so what you should be seeing when you get the score sheets in from the individual room scorekeepers. If you are not seeing these things, then you need to deal with the scorekeeper on that basis, maybe point out something that they forgot to do. But it is important that you understand what they are asked to do. I will essentially reference that throughout the rest of this webinar, but it is good for you to spend that 10 minutes and take a look at it. This is an example of what a score sheet will look like coming to you. They will be handwritten, so I'm sure, we were going to have some handwriting issues. Hopefully they will write as clearly as they possibly can. But the score sheet itself is divided essentially into 3 parts. The header, which contains the round number, the team members' names, and the room letter where they are participating, and then the team name for both sides. Then you have the body, which has the actual score for each of the 22 questions. Notice it's divided into the left-hand side and the right-hand side. So you have a column for the first team and then a column for the second team. That column is separated by the question number, the toss-up question number. Then on the bottom of the sheet, you have where you record the final score, where you add up how many powers they received, where you indicate the winner, and then have the students will have signed off that they agree with the score that was given, and then the scorekeeper will give an official score for that round as well. So that's what the sample sheet actually looks like. So the information that you are going to need from this score sheet, you're going to need the team name and numbers, right? That, we have the round numbers, the team name is written below. Then you will need the round number, which is in the top left-hand side of that sheet. You will need my circles are out of order here, but it's still okay. Let me go ahead and put the rest of them in so that we can look at that. All right, so you're going to need the round number. You're going to need the room number over here on the top right. That's both, you won't have to record that anywhere, but if you need to verify using that, that information is there for you. And check the team name on the left and then the team name on the right as well, so that you know which scores you're recording. You are going to need to record the final score, whether it's a winner or a loser, okay? And then the total number of powers that they received in that round. So all of this information is going to be what you take from the piece and record on the worksheet that we have created for you. Now, if you read the host handbook, you'll notice that it asks you to record some other information as well. But the good news is that we've created a score sheet which will do those calculations for you. So you don't have to do any of those calculations. You just have to enter the data on the sheet. So in order to do that, there are just a few tabs on the score sheet that we're going to give you, and I'm going to show you that here in a minute. There are just a few tabs on that sheet that you're going to need to access. Actually, only 3. You'll need to access the tab that is labeled at the bottom of the page, Round Robin Round Scores, so RR Round Scores. This is where you're going to enter all of the data for the round robin portion of the competition. That's the morning portion of the competition. You will also need what's known as the number team bracket. Now, depending upon which site you are working with, you may have 8 teams at your site. You may have 12 teams at your site. You may have 14 teams at your site. You will need to scroll over at the bottom of the screen, scroll over to the correct number. So if you have an 8-team site, you access the 8-team bracket. Okay, the round robin scores that you typed in during the first round are automatically going to populate this page for you. It's going to determine the seeds for the afternoon bracket and then populate the page according to those seeds. There's really nothing that you have to do on the computer in this bracket, but you can enter the scores that way. You will need to hand enter any scores and any teams beyond round 1. Those will, round 1, the seeds are populated in there, and then you have to enter the scores, and then any other round you'll have to hand enter it. You could also, if you wanted to, print the sheet off and do it all from printing. Okay, oops. The third sheet that you are going to access, the third tab that you will access, is back over to the left. So you want to scroll back to the left again. And this is where you're going to record the scores from the afternoon bracket tournament at the end of the competition. Okay, only those scores are going to be recorded in this section. So you want to keep the sheets from each round, just like you did for the round robin. After each of the elimination bracket rounds, you will receive fewer and fewer sheets, but you will receive the sheets for those rounds. On this page is where you will record those. Let's go for an example, shall we? Okay. Okay, what I have here is an example sheet that we've put together for the webinar itself. Okay, right now I'm on the tab at the bottom of the screen here. You can see that, called Roundrobin Scores. This is the first tab that you're going to need to access. When you receive this tab, your teams will be marked in. Each of your sheets will have up to 16 teams, but we'll only have the number of teams in there that actually are registered at your site. So that you know. Okay, so we're dealing with an 8-team site here. The DOE number, that may or may not still be there when you get the sheet. Don't worry about that. That's nothing that you have to deal with. When we go to the team, I would pull up the sheet, get the answer sheet that they've given me, and I looked at the team North and South. They played one another for the first round. Team North won. And so in this win box, I need to put a number 1. When you get it, it's going to have number reference here. All you need to do is put a 1. If you put a 1 in the win box, the loss box will automatically populate with a 0. If you put a 1, in the loss box, or you put win 0, it'll automatically populate with a 1. So you only have to enter into one of those two boxes. Then you'll type in the score they received for that round, and then look at the bottom left-hand side of the sheet to see how many powers they achieved. Did they achieve, 0 through unlikely 22? How many powers did they receive? The room scorekeeper should have counted that up and put that on the sheet for you. If not, look for the asterisks in the margins. Hopefully they used those. If not, you just count the number of 15s. It shouldn't be a real issue. So we've recorded those things. So I've recorded the powers all the way through. Well, you've got those sheets done, paperclip them together, set them aside, and wait for round 2. When round 2 comes in, you are going to type up those sheets, or not type up, pardon me. You're going to enter those sheets as well. So if, for example, North wins again, I just need to put a 1 in there, and you'll notice when I tab, the loss turns to a 0. I could put the score in there, and your scores are only going to end in a 0 or a 5. And then let's say they got 3 powers. That's going to continue on, and I just hit enter, and then I can come back and do that for the rest of the teams. It's pretty simple. I'm going to back out of this just so that I don't ruin the formulas that have been put in for me, and show you what that's going to do. So now, obviously, we only have one round. The bracket is going to be based on how many rounds your teams play. Okay, so it will give you an average here at the end, but it's going to populate everything based on all of that. Not every site is going to have 7 rounds. All of the sites will have 5 rounds. That's the minimum number of rounds that will be played in this competition for the round robin section. Some of them will have 6, some of them will have 7. So you have to check and see how many rounds are going to be used in your particular area. But it doesn't matter on this sheet how many rounds they use. It'll calculate it based on how many have been entered. So if I go from here, I'm going to come down to the bottom of the page. The next tab I'm going to be accessing, I'm going to keep scrolling to the right because we have a lot of tabs on here. The next tab I'm going to be accessing is the bracket round for the afternoon. Well, if I have entered all of my scores, it will have the bracket filled out already with round 1 and with all of my seeds. If you'll notice here, we have the number 1 seed here at the top playing the number 8 seed, number 2 playing number 7, 3 playing 6, and 4 playing 5. It'll automatically put the right ones in there. So we have North is playing Rome, Greece is playing England, South is playing France, and East is playing West. So there we go, we've got ours. You'll notice also it indicates what room that they will be in. This isn't so much for you as it is for the teams, so they know where to go to play those rounds. So A, B, C, D. Now, beyond this, there's nothing that will go automatically in here. You'll have to enter what you need to do. So, in round 1, you can either, as I said, you could print this out and, enter it, put it up on a marker board, do whatever you want with it, enter the scores there, that's fine. You'll have to enter scores at the end of the competition, at the end of each round, just like you did for the round robin tournament. So, this is just really for show. It doesn't calculate anything itself. But you could, put the scores here, and then who's going to the semifinal, going on all the way to the end. But there's your bracket. You'll notice that the rounds are color-coded. So each one, if I had like a 9-team bracket, we would have one more round that we had to play. So that would be a play-in round. But the rest of the rounds are still color-coded according to a system that we created. So we've got our 8-team bracket. This was our 8-team site. We have created brackets from 7 all the way up to 16 so that we're ready for any contingency. Say somebody doesn't show up to your site and you had scheduled a 15-team bracket. Well, now you only have 14 teams. We didn't want our hosts to be scrambling at the last minute to figure out what to do and how to do it. So all they would have to do, oh, we started off with a 15 team. Oh, now we just need to go to a 14 team. It's already there for you. They will automatically populate in there no matter how many teams they have in the competition, just based on what you put in. So it's good to go. The host will also have a different round robin schedule based on how many teams they have at the site. So they should be prepared for just about anything as well. All right, so we've got the brackets. What do you do at the end of the day? What are you required to do? So let's scroll back here, and the other tab that you need to be able to access, all the tabs that you can't access or that you shouldn't be able to access will be locked. You can still see them, but they will be locked. The team number for the bracket we've left unlocked just in case you have to access one if somebody doesn't show up. But the last team the last tab, pardon me, that you will access is the tournament scoring tab. And really, just like the round robin, there are things that you will need to enter. Okay, so what you will do is you will enter, like for team 1, what did we do in the first round? How many wins, how many losses, how many matches? So you'll, once they've been knocked out, so say Team North gets knocked out in the first round, you've got their material, you can go ahead and enter for them. And then the next round, you can take the ones that have already been knocked out, so that by the end of the day, the only ones you're left having to enter for would be the winners. So let's say team 1 plays team 2 and team 1 gets knocked out in the first round. Well, I would, put here that they had 0 wins and 1 loss. Okay, they had 1 match. And then how many points did they get? Right? If they went to the quarters, they didn't go to the quarters because they got knocked out. They got knocked out. They couldn't do the semi, they couldn't do the final. So they're done. You also need to scroll over here to the right to see if they got any powers. Even though they lost, they still could have gotten powers, and we need to know that. So let's just say, for the record, they got 2 powers in the first round. Well, they weren't in the quarters, they weren't in the semis, they weren't in the finals. Right? So that's all you have to enter for them. As I said, once you get them knocked out, the knockout score, then you can enter everything from earlier on if necessary. You can keep that material from earlier on. Notice it says average score in the bracket matches. They only had 1 bracket match, so their average score is what their average score was, or what their score was. So that's an 85. Average powers in the bracket matches, well, they only had 1 match. They had 2 powers. There you go. This is data that we will use to help determine who gets an invitation for state. So what was the highest match score? What's the highest single match number of powers? So all of this is going to go in there for you automatically. That is, that's a formula that has been put in. So all you will do is put in the numbers in these first 2 sections, and then the wins and losses. So if, this score ends up playing 3 matches and they win twice, you'll have a 2 there, and it will then populate everything it needs to do. Okay, I'm going to back out of this again so as not to destroy any formulas. Okay, that will give us at the central office the material that we need to determine who's going to be invited to state. The top 2 teams at each area will receive an automatic invitation, and then so that will be 8 teams, and then the next 8 teams will be chosen from the highest scores in all of the rest of this data. And those teams will receive an invitation to state as well, which is why it's important for you to make sure that you are as accurate as possible in entering not just who won and who lost, but the scores, the powers, etc. Okay. All right, that is the score report for the score reporting information for the Central Scorekeeper. If you have any questions on what you are supposed to do, please be free to email me, jslinker@iasp.org, and I will do what I can to answer any questions that you may have. We will be sharing the pre-populated score sheets with the host site soon. We wanted to make sure that we had the latest information on who's going to be there and who isn't before we try to create a score sheet for everyone. Thanks again for volunteering or being voluntold to work with us on this competition. It couldn't be done without people like you. Thanks again. Have a wonderful day.